U.S. President Donald Trump took a victory lap on Tuesday in his first speech to Congress since taking office.
To my fellow citizens, America is back.
The president went on to assail his Democratic predecessor, Joe Biden, attacked immigrant criminals as savages and what he called transgender ideology. The speech drew catcalls and interruptions from some Democratic lawmakers who held up signs and walked out mid-speech in protest. Early on, Texas Congressman Al Green stood and shook his cane at Trump. He appeared to be shouting that Trump did not win a mandate in November's election. When he refused to sit down, Green was ordered removed to cheers from the Republican side.
Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Trump's speech came just a day after he paused all military aid to Ukraine, and less than a week after a disastrous Oval Office meeting in which Trump angrily berated Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump read from a letter he said he had received from Zelensky earlier in the day.
The letter reads, Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer.
Trump added there were signs from Russia they were ready for a deal that would bring an end to the war in Ukraine.
Simultaneously, we've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals that they are ready for peace. Wouldn't that be beautiful?
Trump also said Ukraine was ready to sign a minerals deal with the U.S. Washington says that deal is crucial to secure continued U.S. backing for Ukraine's defense. Trump also reiterated his intention to impose additional blanket reciprocal tariffs on April 2nd.
Whatever they tax us, we will tax them.
On this point, many Republicans remain seated, a signal of how Trump's tariffs have divided his party. The move would likely roil financial markets even more after a dip this week, which Trump did not mention in his speech. He also barely mentioned stubbornly high prices, blaming Biden and saying he was fighting every day to lower costs. According to a new Reuters Ipsos poll, just 1 in 3 Americans approve of Trump's handling of the cost of living, underscoring concerns that his tariffs could increase inflation.
U.S. President Donald Trump's new 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada took effect on Tuesday, along with a doubling of duties on Chinese goods to 20%. He said that all 3 countries had failed to do enough to stop fentanyl from entering the U.S. The trade wars could slam economic growth and lift prices for Americans still hurting from years of high inflation. Canada swiftly retaliated. Here's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21 days' time. Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said she would unveil her response this weekend.
Por ello, hemos decidido responder.
Therefore, we have decided to respond with tariff and non-tariff measures that I will announce in a public square next Sunday. It is by no means our purpose to start an economic or trade confrontation, which unfortunately and regrettably is the opposite of what we should be doing. That is, integrating our economies more to strengthen our region.
China announced additional tariffs of 10 to 15% on certain U.S. imports from March 10th, and a series of new export restrictions for designated U.S. entities. Later, it said it had raised complaints about the new measures with the World Trade Organization. The tariffs are already sparking some U.S. price increases on goods, running counter to Trump's election vow to bring down living costs for Americans. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta's GDP Now model showed a stunning shift to a 2.8% U.S. GDP contraction in the first quarter, from a 2.3% estimated growth last week.
So today, the United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense. Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake. At the moment, the U.S. tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21 days' time. Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing
Giant
to do.
US asset manager BlackRock is backing a takeover of Panama Canal ports operated by Hong Kong firm CK Hutchison. The deal announced Tuesday is valued at $22.8 billion and also includes dozens of ports in other countries. It appears to be a win for US President Donald Trump's aggressive diplomacy. He has vowed to wrest control of the canal, falsely claiming that it is being run by China.
China's involved with the Panama Canal. They won't be for long.
Trump has cited the presence of Chinese companies as evidence, with Washington pointing to CK Hutchison's role as a security risk. The US president has refused to rule out military action over the matter. Now the new deal will give the BlackRock-led consortium a 90% stake in Panama Ports Company, which has operated ports on the canal for more than 20 years. A Reuters source says BlackRock, the world's largest asset management firm, has briefed the White House on the move. One expert called the sale a huge win for the US and said it should calm tensions over the canal. Last month, Secretary of State Marco Rubio visited the area and pressured Panama's government to limit Chinese influence. The country subsequently said it would review CK Hutchison's port contract and exit China's Belt and Road infrastructure project. Now the deal could also temper Republican criticism of BlackRock and its boss, Larry Fink. They have been under fire for embracing environmental, social and governance factors in investing.
To continue to phase two.
Israel's foreign minister said on Tuesday his country was ready to proceed to the next phase of a Gaza ceasefire deal, as long as Hamas was ready to release more of the 59 hostages it is still holding. Fighting in Gaza has been halted since January 19th under a truce arranged with U.S., Qatari, and Egyptian mediators. In that time, Hamas has handed over 33 Israeli hostages for some 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees in Israeli jails. But the initial 42-day truce has expired, and Hamas and Israel remain far apart on broader issues, including the post-war governance of Gaza and the future of Hamas itself. Hamas says it wants to move ahead to the second phase of negotiations that could open the way to a permanent end to the war with the full withdrawal of Israeli forces. But Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar said hostages must be handed over for the truce to be extended.
We are ready to negotiate on phase two, and in the meantime, we are ready to extend the framework of the temporary ceasefire. But we have only one condition: our hostages. We want to release hostages. If it is not agreed, it is not agreed.
Israel proposed extending the truce through the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan until the Jewish Passover holiday in April. The U.S. State Department this week said President Donald Trump's Special Mideast Envoy Steve Witkoff is due to visit the region in the next few days to discuss extending the ceasefire. Meanwhile, Israel has blocked the entry of desperately needed aid trucks into Gaza since the last phase of the truce expired. Israel accused Hamas of violating the ceasefire by seizing supplies meant for civilians.
Aid that goes to Hamas is not humanitarian. It's a tool, it's a vehicle, it's a mean to continue the war against Israel.
Aid groups have said that looting and wrongful seizure of aid trucks into Gaza has been a major problem. But Hamas, the Islamist militant group that seized power in Gaza in 2007, denies seizing aid for its own
Gazans gather
members.
at a charity soup kitchen in Khan Yunis to receive Ramadan meals cooked by volunteers. Saturday was the first day of Ramadan. 2 days later, after Israel stopped aid deliveries to Gaza, organisers said they'd had to change the menu from meat to lentils because of price increases. Israel blocked the entry of aid trucks on Sunday as a standoff over Gaza's truce escalated. Humanitarian aid agencies warned Gaza's limited stockpiles of food, medicine and shelter supplies may spoil. Volunteers at the kitchen, which provides meals for 20,000 people, feared food shortages. Here's organiser Abu Omar.
The kitchen administration prepared a plan for the month of Ramadan. But the closures of the crossings has disrupted all the plans because of the closure and the extremely high prices.
Hamas-run authorities deployed in local markets to question and detain merchants who put up their prices, according to Hamas sources and witnesses. Ayub Ma'ruf and his family broke their Ramadan fast on the rubble of their house in Jabalia, a sign of the desperate need Palestinians face after the 16-month-long war. Philippe Lazzarini, head of UN Palestinian Relief Agency UNRWA, said Israel's suspension of deliveries threatened lives and that aid and basic services, quote, must never be used as a weapon of war. More than 300 trucks were stopped from crossing the border from Egypt on Sunday, according to the International Federation of the Red Cross, while the Norwegian Refugee Council warned agencies could end up halting shipments of aid altogether because keeping aid trucks waiting in queues is costly. Ma'ruf fears the return of the hunger they suffered in wartime.
We saw our children die at our feet and in front of our eyes, and we couldn't do anything for them. Because of the famine that we witnessed, we ate grass, we cooked grass, and ate it with spoons.
Israel, while announcing the aid suspension, said it will not allow a ceasefire without the release of all remaining hostages. Hamas has denounced Israel's move as blackmail and, quote, a blatant coup against the agreement.
1 million more people in Somalia could face crisis levels of hunger in the coming month, the World Food Programme warned on Tuesday. That's due to a drought forecast for the next crop cycle. The WFP's Director for Food Security, Jean-Martin Bauer, said that in the next few months, 4.4 million people will be facing acute food insecurity in